Welcome to the Health ROI Show, where we cut through the noise and get straight to the health interventions that have the greatest return on investment, hence ROI, of your time, your energy, and yes, your money. I'm Liz Bradford, ex-MD in banking, founder and board advisor, and in each episode I bring you fireside conversations with the longevity physicians, health tech founders, and optimization specialists who are transforming how high performers optimize their health. If you treat your health like you treat your business, data-driven, systematic, and ROI-focused, you're in the right place. This isn't wellness advice, it's health intelligence backed by data, designed for execution, and built for measurable results. Let's dive in.
So today we're joined by Will Foden, a human performance coach who's worked with CEOs, elite athletes, and business leaders all around the world. I think when I first spoke to him, he was just heading off to Saudi, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
To help them live, lead, and perform where it matters most. So through his company, Built for Pressure, Will helps high performers build physical resilience, mental sharpness, and the leadership capacity to thrive under stress. All of that without burning out. His philosophy is simple but powerful. It's not about doing more. It's about becoming the person who can handle more on their own terms, which I absolutely love. Well, have I missed anything out about your intro? I haven't gone too much into your background because we will go into that.
No. Thank you very much. Very kind. Yeah, no, you summed it up very much so. Expert. I've played a professional sport back in the day. Now in very much the professional arena, which is a sport in itself, I'll assume. But no, I'm very looking forward to our conversation. And thank you for having me.
Amazing. Awesome. Now, I'm really looking forward to it. We've obviously spoken a couple of times, and so I know that there's going to be some absolute gold in here for our listeners. But maybe let's set the scene first. Your company is called Built for Pressure. You work with a lot of people who work in very high pressure environments. So what would you say it really means to be built for pressure in the modern workplace?
Ooh, I think the big thing that most associate being built, except from a built for pressure standpoint, is being adaptable. I think being able to adapt in environments that are ever changing, chaotic. A lot of people in corporates will be dealing with crisis moments, especially the way of the world right now. Being built for pressure is being able to lean in when that time comes. I think, especially in this day and age, there's so much information about and like Canva templates and LinkedIn posts about how to stay hard, stay resilient and all that kind of stuff, where actually me and what my company are striving to do is take leadership performance to the next level, which is actually be able to adapt real time and actually utilize frameworks, actionable steps from a physiological and psychological standpoint to be able to lean in and be an asset in those situations, not just be able to recite sort of motivational or resilient research. That's not really the name of the game. It's actually what actions are being taken to dominate, you know.
So as someone who is guilty of creating those Canva quotes around resilience, many professionals that I come across and that I coach, like they feel they're surviving rather than thriving. What is the biggest misconception that you find amongst them about resilience specifically, because you use the word resilience, among executives? What's the biggest myth that you would want to bust about it out there?
I think people think resilience is a chronic thing. Resilience is supposed to be acute. It's supposed to happen, stop, and then calm and reload. And this is where like chronic stress is a huge issue at the moment. Our central nervous systems aren't wired to be resilient 365 days of the year. They're wired to deal with the situation and step off. I feel in most executive environments, they're people are just thinking fighting everything is the only way. Where Adam Grant talks around actually, instead of thinking of it as a fight, think of it as a dance. And again, for someone I was an ex-professional sport. I played ex-professional rugby. I was a back row. I was probably known only for just being extremely violent. Everything I've ever done was always a fight. And I always thought being resilient was that. The bit that sort of elevated me, not only from a physical standpoint, but from an emotional and sort of professional one, was the more awareness around when actually sometimes being soft is very important, and being, again, vulnerable is a bit of a coy term at the moment, but I feel like being vulnerable in that respect is also very important in certain scenarios, but it's all situational compared to people think be resilient, full stop. One of my friends, Gareth Timmins, who's an ex-Royal Marine, he says about cognitive endurance. I find that's more around being able to have sustainable stress capacity compared to just, like I said, be resilient in moments is brilliant, but trying to fight your way through everything is only going to make you tired.
Yeah, I always think of resilience as like it's your ability to get back up when you've been knocked down, as opposed to
100%, like
throwing punches.
Yeah. I think bounce back ability is such a personal thing, but it's also an exposure thing. I think, like you said, you've worked heavily in the corporate environment. You'll know that when things go south, they can take all your gas. Being able, but also they can affect you on a personal level. And most of the time in those corporate environments, you can't actually show that. I think that's quite the mask of looking professional as a professional is actually quite a detrimental piece, because people forget the human inside of their performance. And it's not mine, it's Gordon Ramsay's term, was that, are you taking it personally or professionally? But when entrepreneurs or people that are pushing the sort of, or founders or people who are pushing their business, they are their business and their business is them. So where's the line between personal and professional? There is one. It's an active process in finding it, utilizing it, and recognizing, like you said, being resilient for your work, but not taking that back and it sort of oozing out onto your personal life and that kind of thing. I think that's the difference that separates the elite level performers and those who are putting on a brave face, but actually when you get them for 5 minutes by themselves, the awareness around what they actually need to do next is quite murky. I think that uncertainty is a massive pain point at the moment in this sort of professional space, for sure.
And so when you come across someone who's in that situation, so on the outside seems super calm, can absorb loads of stress, but on the inside doesn't really know what to do next, just good at fronting it, how would you help them build resilience?
I'm a big body first person, because I feel a strong and healthy body elicits into a clear and calm mind, which allows you to make better decisions, which actually in turn helps you lead from a different type of position. I think a lot of people try and think their way through a situation, but they haven't actually optimized the hardware first. If you've got poor quality hardware, your software is not going to be operating at a level that's needed, especially in the realms that we're talking around. I mean, inside Built for Pressure, we measure our 5 key growth drivers: human optimization, personal development, executive performance, ownership and direction, which is your own personal leadership skills, and your current self-awareness. And if you were trying to substack that, it would be self-awareness and self-management, because I think it's easy for us to all look at the bad points of everything. I think if you're high achieving, I'll come off this call and the first thing that I'll do is I'll look at it and go, what did I do wrong? Not how cool is it? I have an amazing conversation with a lady across the other side of the world. Point being, people who are high achieving or are driven for more are always looking for that next 1%. And I think that's what I personally not only specialize in, but I'm always curious about. But I also know a lot of professional, like people who are looking to grow astronomical feats of professional performance. They all have that same inner drive. And I think that self-awareness piece is, someone who comes to me, if they wanted to get more resilient, is have they got the work capacity to do it? And that's a physical work capacity. I think a lot of executives rely on grit and determination, which is an amazing fuel source, but it's finite. It will burn you out. Whereas we'll go into this later in relation to how to leverage your body to give you more vocational capacity. That is probably where the rubber meets the road with what I do personally and sort of what I've been interested in over the last 10 years.
Yeah. Absolutely. That probably leads us really nicely into the next question that I had, which was like, we talk a lot about return on investment in this series, specifically because a lot of our listeners are in finance or something related to finance, so they kind of understand that. So if there were sort of like 3 interventions, and from what you said, it's potentially going to be body first, but if there were 3 interventions that would offer the highest return on investment or return on well-being for busy professionals, what would they be and why?
I'm going to bounce around a bit because I've got the first one on my head. The first one will definitely be, does their diary reflect their standards? I think professional people who are, especially in the finance currently at the moment is absolutely riot. I'm not a finance expert, but my financial advisor is ringing me up with his head falling off. So I know exactly. It's very, very, very reactive to, as market shifts. It's like everyone's on the boat getting into it. But if your diary doesn't reflect the you inside of your performance, that's massive. What do I mean by that? I mean, have you got your training locked in? Have you systemized your days so you're getting your most creative work done at a time where you're physiologically most creative? Are you reacting to other people's BS rather than dealing with your own ventures first and then looking after others? I think what most professionals, it's literally they're firefighting all the time, and their training goes to pot, their nutrition is non-existent, their recovery is poor, they don't sleep, they're being candid markers of that are like poor digestion. Like people are coming to me and they're talking about they're bloated every 5 minutes. That's not normal. Like there's things happening from a physiological standpoint that need to be adhered to. But I think if you ask me, the first one would be boundaries and understanding if your training is not in your diary, it will not be done. So that's a huge one that I do with all my customers. Is I literally on our first call, as I'll drag up their Google Calendar, and it looks like an old blind man's playing backgammon. Like, it's literally all over the shop. They've got nothing in there that looks after them. And training doesn't need to be. I think people associate training as like, you have to have this 90-minute absolutely send it workout and be running around with a wall ball on your head and all this other jazz. Like, hang on a minute. Those people who are cooking on gas, I've got a particular customer I've never met a man with a work rate. Work rate's like insane. And he came to me literally eating like a dustbin. Like, he ate whatever was in front of him. It wasn't that he meant that. It was that he didn't have himself locked in his diary the month before. So everything got filled up and he had no opportunity, where if you look after you, I think that's massive. Number 2 would be just remember that you're human. I think there's back to that Canva thing. It's not a bad thing, because I got Canva ones as well. It's more people are looking at those and looking into the minutiae detail, but they're forgetting the things that make you human. Like, human connection's massive. The amount of executives that I know that live on Zoom that never see anybody, that say they've got mental health problems. The reason being is 10 years ago they went and got on the piss with their mates, where now they're busy sucking their celery juice, trying to be clean, and then they go out on the weekend and blow themselves into oblivion because they've had enough. I think the human bit is, are you aligned with what you're doing? Are you treating yourself with respect? Are you happy? Like, and you're allowed to be happy in the middle of it, by the way. Like, I love work. Like, I said this to someone, we were joking about it the other day about, imagine you won the lottery. I was like, it'd be cool. I'll have a massive truck and I'd have a wicked camping house in British Columbia somewhere, but I'd still want to work because it's part of who I am. So I think the human bit's massive, and it's something that I've sort of come to realize, is that even I've worked with some people who are selling businesses for hundreds of millions or working with global companies. If you ask most of them what do they want, they'll tell you some like goal around their body composition or insert whatever challenge. Actually, what they want is they want peace of mind, that they're aligned with their actions, they're calm under challenge, and that they know they're capable when they're asked on. I think that's huge. Number 3 would be treat your recovery more like a training session. More, and what I mean by that is most people are so under recovered. They think their 7-minute AMRAP on an assault bike is what's actually going to get them the body they want, the energy they want, the physical robustness they want. Actually, how they recover 3x is that by far. The more your recovery should be a process in itself, especially if you're playing at the executive altitude, and especially in the finance space, where I deal with a lot of customers that I used to live in Singapore, and I now live in the UK. I've got customers in Singapore, Australia, US, but they're all playing around with each other. Time zones are all over the shop. But actually, how do they maximize their recovery, improve their sleep? And then improving your sleep isn't, I think, especially in the arenas that we're speaking in right now, is we're speaking in like a niche 1% arena, which is there's certain things you're not going to be able to do. I've got a young son, as mentioned before, up at 3:30 this morning. He's not sleeping. Like me, with this perfect 8 hours sleep with my chamomile tea at 8:30 and no phone and does not, absolutely not eating 3 hours before you go to bed. But I know a lot of people in the finance space are finishing at 9 p.m. So I think that for me is how you actually play your recovery is huge, but actually making it personal to your situation.
I think the recovery thing is, I mean, it's something that even as a personal trainer, I've been a personal trainer for nearly 10 years now. I've been an executive coach for almost the same amount of time. And the one thing that I never practiced, what I preached, was recovery.
Yeah.
And it's just
so as a PT though, because you're giving you're there for them.
So I was doing the PT and then I'd go and do my office job and everything else, but I'd always be telling everyone else about recovery. But for me, I was still always pushing through. And it's only more recently, and actually it's because of wearables, which once you have the data, you cannot unsee it in terms of, like, it doesn't matter that you got X amount of sleep. If you're hugely sleep deprived, even if one night of the week I managed to catch up, my recovery still isn't coming back because, my heart rate variability is still all over the shop. All of the other things that get measured. And it's just super interesting that you have to be like, right, do you know what? I have to practice what I preach now. I have to start walking the walk from an energy perspective.
Yeah. Like it's difficult, isn't it? Because especially because we use what you measure, you manage. Yeah. So if you measure, everyone in the finance space is very obvious P&L or it's whatever. How many people are actually utilizing that for their own personal recovery? They haven't got any KPIs for themselves. They've got KPIs for their business. I guarantee everyone listening to this knows exactly what their targets are for Q4. But what's your recovery target for Q4? Sounds really mediocre. Well, what are you on about? But most people want play and they want to. That's why Whoop has done so well. It's gamified it. And if you gamify your recovery and use it as another practice of performance, you are then walking the walk. And it's so, I think especially people who aren't coaches, as a coach, you've got your own standards, but actually the ones that are outward facing are the ones that people see. So, and especially when especially a lady like yourself, who's a PT, an executive coach, you'll have a lot of people who look up to you who are probably idolizing you a little bit because they want to get in and do a job they enjoy rather than being on the corporate hamster wheel, vice versa. This is where, again, superficially, you got to look like your product and you got to look like you're pushing yourself, and you have to be. You say it's all part of the game of the common coach currently, and not currently, it has always. But actually, does your internals reflect the external? Like you could be. I know people who come to me who are shredded, and their blood work is horrific. Like
really?
their cholesterol is through the roof. I've got inflammatory markers coming out of their ears. But yeah. Oh yeah, cool. I look wicked. I look great on Instagram. And then 3 months later, they break themselves training. Their mental health goes to pot. They get massively overweight. They get all sorts of. It's like a weird snowball where actually blood work doesn't lie, metrics don't lie. And I actually had similar incident where I went to British Columbia a month ago, and it was the first time I've stopped in 4 years as in holiday. No phone, no computer. I even when I've been off at home, you're not off. I still. Whenever I've got an hour, everyone's asleep, I'll go and do whatever. There, 2 weeks off in the mountains, and we ran, you mentioned about Saudi, I run immersion experiences, which are like, we'll take teams, basically do high performance workshops and then take them into uncontrollable environments in Saudi. We took them to the desert and gave them a thrashing in there in the best possible way. It was great. But then I went to the opposite. I went to British Columbia where it was calm, it was serene, the mountains are there, and all of my metrics went through the roof, like,
really?
My HRV, my HRV went up 20 points. Weird. Because for the last 3 years, I've lived in the bunker of I've got to just attack everything. Yes, I preach it and I'm good at recovering, but long-term recovery, I've now seen the light more so because I've had way more exposure to, and my metrics did this when I went into the mountains and I didn't have my phone with me. So 2 and 2 now recognizes that I need that more often,
Yeah. No, it's incredible. And I think we'll keep learning about this space. I think it's just getting more and more interesting in that one.
Whoop is absolutely tearing it up at the moment.
Yeah, I resisted it for a long time, but I have to say it's good. It's very good.
I think the issue that most people have with Whoop, the only thing is just wearing 2 watches. Like that's the only thing. The rest of it, the data.
One's an Apple Watch, and then I've got 4. So I can't really complain about that. No, but
I had the same thing. That's the only thing that put anybody off. But then the data you get from it is absolutely spot on. And again, I'm a bit of a funny one with it because some of my customers, if they're data driven, their whole process becomes so granular they forget the adaptability piece of actually an example. If the guys and ladies who are wearing them, if you've got a huge board meeting that means a lot to your company tomorrow, your HRV will be absolutely toilet the day of it because your central nervous system is gearing up for it. People that are too deep in the information, what they'll do is that will actually affect their performance in the boardroom because they think they're under recovered instead of them recognizing they're going into a highly stressful environment. That people we still forget that our nervous system they don't understand board meetings and bosses that think saber-toothed tigers and survival. Yeah. So
yeah,
if you understand the data, the leverage is huge. It's just like you said, if you're using it in the manner of snowball, like continual measurement over weeks and months, absolutely game changer. Just be careful of, as you said, if you're using it for like one-off snippets. It's the same analogy of Mark Cavendish's psychologist. He took his phone, he took all that stuff off him because he didn't want external stimulus to change his perception of his performance. It's the same with professionals. Data is great, but how you use data is the most important thing.
Yeah, I think quite tellingly, no professional athlete who uses wearables will check the data the morning of a comp. Because if you look at it, and of course you've had a shit night's sleep, excuse my language, but like you're stressed, you're going to have to perform the next day. So of course
you're supposed to be stressed. You're about to play in front of how many people in it, and
exactly.
people.
The last thing you need is looking at it and going, "Oh, I'm really tired." Like recovered.
The worst thing about Garmin is when you're running and if you run and you have like I've had a bad night's sleep or go for a run, it says you're like -5, and you're like, mate, come on, give me a break. It's just it does you in. If you take it personally, you just sack your run off and go down to the calf. But
I don't do Garmin because it's just there are so many memes about like the difference between an Apple Watch is like, woo, you're amazing, and Garmin, which is like, you're trash. Why do you even bother?
It's like a form of abuse, but I kind of like it.
Fair enough.
It keeps me honest, but it is 100% true. Like Garmin doesn't like anybody. Where Apple Watch is everyone's friend, 100%.
We've touched on this a little bit, but like you talking about people getting really into the data is sort of bringing it up even more for me. So a lot of people are optimizing for productivity. And a lot of people, when they first come to me, it's like, I just want to be able to do more. I want to have more capacity, more energy. I want to be able to do more. So they're optimizing for that. But that is, unless you are introducing the piece about being human that you talked about, that really is just a recipe eventually for burnout. So how would you help people distinguish between performance optimization and the kind of performance like the burnout disguised as productivity?
Okay, cool. This is a little rabbit hole. This is wicked. When what does productivity actually mean? Is what I would say to somebody. So it's the amount of input compared to the amount of output. Yeah. So actually, if you're looking to be more productive, it's not increasing your input; it's increasing your output. So your input is the same, but your output is more. That's being productive. Where just telling somebody to work more, that's not productive. And this is where you look at the sort of the state of productivity. Look at it from the lens I mentioned right at the beginning. From the human side of things, most people aren't fueling themselves enough to be productive. They forget that their brain needs fuel as well. So what most people do, they never have any carbohydrate. You got females they're fasting until 10 a.m. because, I don't know, Joe Bloggs' mate tells you to do it, where if anybody wants to, the Stacey Sims stuff, this is like, should be common knowledge now that females, the way their metabolism works is different to a man. So females who are fasting, you need to get protein in a lot faster than a man. We can go down that rabbit hole if we want to, just because of the basic muscle breakdown. But vice versa, from a body standpoint, if you've got the gas to do it, two, are you putting your brain in the right position to be more productive? That's another thing that I see people who are so distracted, and it takes you 21 to 23 minutes every time you go into a distraction to get back into. People talk about flow state, but just to have focused work, actually setting yourself up to do that. So because your body's naturally inclined to try and find dopamine, like it's naturally inclined to be lazy. Your body doesn't want to be productive; it wants to be a lazy organism. It wants to live. So how do you physically get yourself in that shape? And that's the sort of long-term piece. But from like the prevention of it, feeling of basically masking burnout, this is where you sort of go right into the psychological piece. Is actually your self-worth is tied to your output. So if I increased your output, but you didn't put any more input in, would you feel worthy of that job? And that's where what most people do is they feel guilty for taking a rest. Even though we're in a day of AI, even though we're in the day of having more leverage, even though we're in the day of having whatever, the guilt won't let them stop. How many people do we know that will finish their job that they said they were going to do at 3, but they're still sat behind their laptop at 6 until the 6:01 because they're the guilt of, I could do? I could actually just go outside and I could go insert whatever fun thing you want to do. Nah. In the finance industry, a little bit more coy because you are working for corporates and you're in buildings and you can't just leave work unless you've got one of those sort of workplaces. But the identity of you being a hustler, for you getting after it and you just proving you can bleed more than somebody else, that's not elite level performance. You don't see a Royal Marine running around with his helmet off in a battle in a war, screaming at whoever he's fighting, trying to show that he can take more bullets than somebody else. He's calm, collected, focused, slow as smooth as fast. Point being, you're trying to be more effective. Being more effective isn't increasing your output. It's the opposite. It's being lazy and reducing your input to create more output. That's the key. And it's definitely an identity thing, in my opinion. The burnout productivity matrix that is really prevalent with people because it's a badge of honor. And it's like, it's what, I'll suffer more than you. And you're like, yeah, cool. So that doesn't do anything. And it's probably, again, I'm speaking from a place of I was a back row playing rugby. My superpower was I could bleed more than you, and I had a bigger work rate than you. I would hit 20 tackles a game, my ear falling off, play the whole game with a broken jaw, snap my leg in half by getting kicked by a horse, came back and played 8 months later.
Presumably.
No, it wasn't. No, it was off the field. Yeah. My ex-partner was getting trampled by it, so I got involved. Oh, wow. It was. I signed my first pro rugby contract, owned a horse place, a livery yard. She was getting trampled. 8 weeks into my contract, I got involved, got an offer, got kicked, had my leg fully snapped in half, ACL, PCL, and MCL. And then 10 months later, I was playing against Cross Keys away, yeah. But wow. My story was resilient. It was work rate. It was I will outwork everybody. Then after you get there, after you get back on the pitch, it's not about how much you can work rate. It's about how effective you are. And I kind of had that life lesson many a time. And I've had that in my business too. And I think so many corporate professionals who are, they're feeling this like, I've got no gas, but I just can't stop. They're not measuring anything. They haven't got their goals. They haven't got like, you've got high hard goals, and then like high audacious goals, and you've got your KPIs for what you need to hit for that week. They've got no definition of done. They just think more is more and more is not equal.
And I'm probably guilty of this in my past as well. In like the 20 odd years I was in banking, we create cultures where actually worth is tied to input, not output.
100%. Yeah. You have to show you have to be part of the team and show that you can do what everyone else can do, but everyone else who's 10 years ahead of you, totally different generation, have got no understanding around leverage. Like they can't, from a biological standpoint and from a physical standpoint and from a professional standpoint, like most burnout that I've ever encountered, I've had one customer out of thousands of hours of coaching people who's had proper adrenal fatigue, as in absolutely cooked, doctors needed, gone hospital vibe, but everyone else is resource management and leverage. They haven't got enough resources, or they're burning their resources way faster than their input. That's it.
And when you do come across someone like that, when an executive needs to sort of rebuild their sense of self-worth, so they're cooked, maybe not completely cooked, not doctor level, but they've lost interest. They cannot fire on all cylinders anymore. They really don't know where to turn to next. When that success has come at the expense of their well-being, so nice title, nice salary, everything else, but just cannot see themselves doing it for another 10 years before retirement. How do you help them rebuild that sense of self if it's not related to input?
It's understanding what the identity is. Steve Magnus talks around this again. I'm currently doing this at the moment. You've got a broad identity and a narrow one. Broad means that you've got multiple different spheres inside your identity. Like for me, for example, dad, business owner, athlete, friend, husband. Or you have narrow, which most professionals in that circumstance have gone narrow, which means I am a professional. I'm a director of X. I used to have this with rugby. Who's Will Foden? Rugby player. That full stop, nothing else. With that sort of tunnel vision, everything becomes bigger. From a stress mechanic standpoint, your wins become more verifying that you're good enough. Your losses are so personal, they knock you for six, and hence why what do most executives do? Get back on the wagon, get attacking. Get back off the floor, dust yourself off and keep on moving. Where the people that have absolutely done this for years and who are cooked and they are, to be frank, fucked. First things first is actually changing the goalpost to what success looks like. Because the identity most people have is they look at the result first, and then what they do is they see the actions that they need to do, and then it's who am I? Where actually elite level performers or people that I want to keep performing at a crazy level, who they are is at the beginning, and then they have their actions they need to do to be that person, and then they have the results will be the compound interest of being the person they said they're going to be. So it's instead of using the outcome as the biggest driver, which is push motivation, which the issue is if you stop pushing, you can't keep going. It's a pull motivation of who do I need to be at this certain moment, and someone who is in that position who is struggling. I always look at physiology first. see what the metrics are doing, blood work, getting a sort of like a data tracking system of some description, what their nutrition profile is, what their current inputs and outputs are, what their metrics are from a sleep perspective. But the feelings they're getting and the emotions are all signals. It would be actually sitting them down and seeing them how they see success, because all of us see a different version. We could be sat in the same room and we could both be seeing a totally different movie. And that's the hardest thing for somebody, is they feel so trapped because they if they stop working, they stop winning, which is also bullshit you're telling yourself. But actually, if they stop working and the bus was to move forward, then they've no longer got the validation of them being the head of the. So you've got this weird oxymoron that you can't stop because you're not good enough. But if you do stop and it is good enough, you feel like you're going to get replaced. Such a weird, but then that there's really hyper specific, and that's really like I do this with all my customers. It's kind of why I've sort of fallen in the leadership performance bit rather than just being health and fitness or anything, is because I think how you lead yourself is probably the biggest game changer for people at this level. Normal civilians, it sounds like I'm coying, but people that who aren't as driven have got more gas just because they've got more bandwidth. People like who are we working with? How much gas does it take for them to actually get someone to sit down and talk shop about anything that isn't firefighting or business, because their identity is tied around problem solving someone else's BS rather than their own. It's just, it's hard, but it starts with that. It starts physical first, and then psychological burnout for them is giving them more direction about how to be more aware of it, because it has to keep coming. Yeah, like if we want exponential growth, you have to get to the edge of your capacity. You have to fly close to the sun to see if it gets burnt. Yeah, like we have to know where that edge is. The issue is most executives at that point have got like a rope tied around their ass and they're falling off the edge, just looking over the edge and keep going and thinking they're playing with fate rather than we can play a different game.
So to your point, it's not just about physical training, but it does, you said it, and I'm going to quote you, it starts with the body. So how does training the body translate into then leadership capacity and decision making? Why do you always start there?
You always see somebody's true colors when they're doing hard things, and you in times of chaos, you always sink to the levels of your training in everything. When you're in business and the markets are going Pete Tong, you got some people that still make money in there and some lose everything. You've got people who are again military. It's you train yourself so that when you are in a firefight, it's just another training session. If you do professional athletes, we're the same. The more that you practice, the more it becomes second nature. I think when you're under stress and duress, you sink to your baseline, and the more that you train your body to be robust, to go and do hard things, to do things that when your emotions are saying stop, but you're pushing your body through, it's like a trust mechanism. Your body is building trust and building its callous. You can talk about it from like hippocampus growth and how like the part of your brain that and how that is like Andrew Huberman and David Goggins. You're saying how thick. I think David Goggins' hippocampus probably about 11 foot long because he's absolutely off his bonnet. But you know what I mean? Like you train resilience and to be more resilient in micro exposures. And those micro exposures have to be just on the edge of pushing past your current adaptive capacity, because that's how you grow. You general adaptation syndrome. You stress yourself out, your body adapts to it. You then become more effective at doing the thing. It's no longer a big stress. You've got to stress it even more. And it's like training a muscle, but most people don't associate. They think like mental performance and physical performance are over here, like polar different. I'm the opposite. I think it's an infinite loop. I think it's such a. I used to do this in Singapore. I used to have a load of shipping brokers come in, and it started off being just a 4-man team basically, and most of them desk jobs. Most of them, they'll say Harry's boys will say they're athletes, but they are civilians. Yeah, they're not professional athletes, and all I did with them was made it competitive. Because by making it competitive, it suddenly turned it from just being about their health and trying to talk to them about like it was like a motivation drive of you're going to beat your mates, so hurry up and get moving. By the end of the time I was there, we had 16 to 20 blokes absolutely chasing it. But actually, in hindsight, they were all working against each other in the trading rooms as well as in there. Yeah. Point being, one of the guys who was the head of them all, all he used to kept saying to me. He used to bring all his new clients there and come and trade, because it was like a measure of like, okay, cool. You may be tough as nails because you've got a big title, but how about if you get on an assault bike and me and you are going after it for 10 minutes? It used to be like it wasn't a case of I'm making someone bleed. It was more of all right, cool. I know your true colors. When you're compromised, how do you actually act? And it's probably where this is stemmed from, I'm so curious about how someone takes stress and just utilizes it so effectively compared to, because we're all in the same place. It's just like some can dominate and keep dominating, others crumble. And I think that for me is like why it's so important I talk about both, not just one.
And I do think so. It's important to go back to your very first point about boundaries on that, because I absolutely agree with you on how you build resilience and the fact that resilience is a skill as well. But I think challenge is a lot of people are just in this chronic stressed environment, and you can't build. It goes back to recovery. You can't build if you push yourself out of your comfort zone and you just stay out there all the time.
Yeah.
Have the recovery to consolidate the gains, right? Just like muscle. You need to have recovery to then patch over, build, and then realize you can push yourself even further. But the problem is at the moment, we aren't in an environment where, unless we draw boundaries ourselves, there is no natural recovery, because the system will always ask for more if you're in corporate. And so,
and if you just put a brave face. Yeah. I think, but also just for people to, stress is perception. Yeah. So put me into me and you go to banking. I've worked with bankers, never been in a banking boardroom. In that environment, you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. You walk in there, no problem, talk, drop and leave. I walk in there pretending to be prim and proper with my hair combed over, thinking, what the FNL is going on here? Right, cool, I've just got to figure this out. My stress is going to be way more than yours, even though me and you both operate in the same environment. Apart from particular perception is something that would maybe trip me up. Most people, they see stress response as a negative thing. Stress is like the number one driver of performance, so everyone's clear. Like if you're not stressed, I was about to say you're boring. You're not boring. If you're not stressed, you're not going to grow, period.
You're not going to perform.
You're not going to perform. Pressure needs pressure, yeah? Whereas the perception of stress is where we need to start. That's the difference that makes the difference. Is most people, we use a thing called a challenge response rather than a stress response. A challenge response means it's open-ended, it's responsive, it's adaptive, I've got a capacity to. It's a stress response is inward thinking. Oh my God, everything's falling in on me. I can't do this. If we change that frame, your language shapes your environment, shapes your world, let alone your environment. If I see like this podcast, massive stress. It's not really a stress because I know you're a legend, and I also know that this is our field. Like I'm not talking about ironing or antiques or whatever. I'm talking about stuff that I love. So is it stressful? But I also know someone in my shoes who's never done this before could be absolutely cacking themselves. They're like, what the point being is pressure is a privilege. People operating in this is if you didn't have pressure, you'd be bored. So if again, I always say this to people that are in finance as well, is look, the door's over there, boss. Like you don't want to leave. You're struggling to, but actually, if you want to get paid the way you want to get paid, you want to have the impact, the status, the freedom, the opportunity, the all the bells and whistles that come with it. Okay, cool. Well, it's a choice. So if it's a choice, it's a privilege. Then you need to choose how we see it, how we utilize it, how we play it. And back to your point, it's taking responsibility of your in-house. You're going to go and play with fire. Put the gloves on properly and play with it properly. You're going to get burnt otherwise. Like that's literally and I think so many people. What frustrates me, again, I talked about ownership and direction, like you're responsible. Full stop. Things will happen to you that aren't your responsibility, or they're not your fault. But if you take ownership of it, again, I always talk about my injury because I don't know what to show off. But people ask me, why would I ever go back and change it? I say no, just because the power I take from it is if I have it. It's on me. That now affects my decision making, and I've used it all the time to make sure that I stay aligned with who I need to be at that moment. Compared to before that, I was the opposite. I was trying to make everyone else happy. So, like, for my point being, if you take responsibility of whatever's going on in your world, you've got a capacity to have a choice and to choose and to make a difference. That stress response lower, challenge response, and you're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're always responsible for your response, right?
Always. And let's not get it twisted. Like I'm wired to fight people. That was my thing. So do I get emotional? Absolutely. People's like, oh, you can't be emotional. Do you know what? Yeah. Someone starts with me, I'm full bang. Being open because that's long term behavior. Yeah. But now actually I pick that battle. Not before it was like everything was a war. Now someone challenges me. I'm curious. I'm like, well, actually, is that true? Or is that not true? How can we fight? Rather than before, it was like everything was just, it was all against me. Now it's like, well, actually, I had someone today. I've got a presentation in a week's time. And they challenged something on there. And at first, I was a bit like, no. Okay, I see their point. That's fair. Right before, that would have been, right, that's it. I was off. Let's go. Again, that's that ownership. You're going to be in a much better position.
Yeah. Amazing. And what a brilliant way to close, I think, just around ownership and accountability and the massive links between that and peak performance. Do you mind if we do our quick fire questions? Because I'm really keen to
Go. Hit
get
me.
your. Okay, so what's one well-being habit that you never skip, no matter how busy you are?
Wake up in the morning, hydrate before I caffeinate. Always.
Have you always done that? Or because it's very popular now to say that, but have you always done that?
I've always not started my day with coffee, not meaningfully, just from like it hits me like a hammer if I do that. But now I'm way more tuned into the performance benefit. That's something that I would do religiously. The other one, if you're asking me long term, I train 6 days a week. That's what training isn't always like send it on an assault bike. It can literally be yesterday I back squatted, that was it. Or I go for a run for half an hour. Some days I'll bury myself, others I won't, but I need to move 6 days a week minimum. I'm an angry bear if I don't. My wife says don't train. She knows what she's getting. I won't train because I love her to pieces, but she also knows she's getting an asshole for the rest of the day. So don't do that.
But also recover.
Also recover, yes. Also recovery. I love my food, so don't you worry. That's a given. I train to eat more. That's why I train.
That's exactly what I said to someone the other day. They were like, "How do you do that? How do you eat like that?" And I'm like, "That's why I go to the gym." So
the only reason why we train is because I love barbecue and I want to eat barbecue on the weekends. So it's the only. It's the. We can talk high performance all you want, but I'll show you the brisket we're cooking at this house. That's high performance.
What is a common piece of health advice that you wish people would ignore?
I think it's obvious, but like from like it's very common. But like carbohydrates aren't bad for you. I think that I don't know food's actually bad for you. Like, but everything in extremes is going to be bad for you. But I think carbohydrates been the most demonized macronutrient in everything, and especially for professional people, they don't recognize their brain runs on glucose. So, and also we won't go deep into like the blood markers of it, but that grinds my gears. It's more from a trust thing, especially in female populations, not being sexist, just the gang mentality of female. If one of your mates does it, all of them will start doing it, and it's a generational thing too. Carbs are life, but carbs, if you use them properly, are life. Not. I'm not this person that sits there thinking you can eat cereal for breakfast and as an executive. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is fuel your performance with carbohydrate, and it's a game changer.
Yeah. No, and I think people commonly associate carbs with just like white bread or pizza or something like that, whereas actually there's carbohydrate in a lot of things that is very healthy. So
100%. And you go down the road of like the healthier the organism, the more it can absorb. So you're not. It's not Brian Walsh's stuff. You're not what you eat. You are what you eat and you absorb. Like most executives that come to me got terrible digestion. They've got bloating, flatulence, belching. They go to the bathroom and it's like a nuclear bomb's gone off. They can't digest food properly, and it's chicken and the egg. They're usually eating absolutely nothing. They're eating salads and meat and bits of tat off their kids' plate, and then they're going out and getting on the piss, and they're doing client dinners, or they actually don't they chew their food properly and don't fuel the mechanism of if you're going to train properly, you mainly use carbohydrate. So most people are like, oh yeah, keto this, you can keto that. Yeah, cool. But then what type of training are you doing? Because if you're doing high energy output, high glycolytic work, i.e. sprints, and you're trying to run that on fat, not going to happen. So food quality is very important, and I'm big, especially in our space where this is more health and well-being rather than like elite levels of physical performance. I've got some that are both executives and who are pushing their physical limits. But the healthier you are, the more carbs that you can absorb. The more carbs that you can absorb, the more energy that you're going to have that's effective for X. And that's where most people get it wrong. They don't recognize the reason behind why they're doing something, and they don't bastardize anything is a struggle. But yeah, carbs is a big one for sure.
Yeah, and I think I agree 100% in the female population. I grew up in the era where carbs were evil, and
Yes,
and low fat was great. Have everything low fat, people. We're just going to fill it full of sugar. So
just don't eat it. Just eat air sandwiches, isn't it?
Eat dust and do aerobics. Right. If you could put one performance principle on a billboard for every leader to see, what would it say?
I would put, don't start your day with your phone.
Interesting.
There is a really geeky scientific reason for that, but there's actually more so about most executives that get on their phone and they suddenly lost themselves before anybody else. You're not looking after yourself first there. You want to start firefighting at 7 a.m, or make sure that you're optimized and ready to deal with that fire. Make a choice, be effective or just be monotonous, I think.
And I'm so guilty of this, but you're immediately letting other people take control of your day. And they're not meaning to, but it's that you're immediately responding to that rather than...
It's this is where you start talking about from the self is compulsion. And also, I look at it two spheres. I've got that side of me, which is I'm a coach, I'm a problem solver. If I see something, I want to solve it. So if I see it at 5 a.m, I still want to solve it. Whereas from a personal standpoint, it's when I spend time with my son. It's, the main part of my day is 5 till 6:30 with my son. It's a respect thing for him, but there's also, from a psychological standpoint, when you wake up, your brain's in alpha brainwave state. It's there to calm, rest, digest. It's coming out of dreaming, yeah? If you go onto your phone, you go into beta, so you go to hyper focus. You're just like starting a car in fourth gear. Let's say a big decision's coming in and you think you're being effective because you're getting on the phone quicker. That's not being effective. Giving yourself half an hour to get hydrated, some sunlight, a little bit of movement if you can, all those cool things. Even brush your teeth properly and then deal with your phone. It means you're going into that with a responsive compass compared to a reactive one. I think that's huge. And there's so many people I see, they're just like walking zombies. And what actually happens is the reason why at 10 a.m. they're still fast asleep. They're having 5 coffees deep and they don't even know what day it is. It's because they haven't set themselves up.
Yeah. I'm going to actually... I used to, when I lived in Hong Kong, my phone was in a different room from me when I slept.
Yeah, nice.
I'm going to start again, because here I don't do that. I've fallen into bad habits on that one, because I've got a business in Hong Kong, business in Dubai. You wake up and then I'm on a board that's in the US. You wake up and like my WhatsApp is just
wild.
So, I'm going to try that again. That's really good advice. Thank you. I'm going to ask you one more question. I'm going to let you go, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
What is one book, practice, or mentor that's most shaped how you think about pressure?
Oh. Ooh. 2. Can I give you 2? Is that cool? One's more rugby, one's not. Legacy, James Keir. But by far, mate, anyway, it was about business and leadership. The All Blacks and their ethos around their culture. Take their lessons and take all of them. They're amazing. That changed my life. And Stephen Kotler's stuff, The Art of Impossible. I think if you're looking at the 1% and like understanding the sort of the neuroscience around things, I found his stuff was absolutely wicked from like understanding the grit, determination, motivation, and that kind of stuff. It gave me the science behind them rather than emotion. It was like, what's the brain actually doing? I found that amazing. But a third, and if everybody wants it, Hard Thing, Steve Magnus, bang, done. Sorry, that's not 1, that's 3, but they're
1. I'm loving it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll link to all of those in the podcast.
Yeah. Game changer.
Thank you so much. This has been absolute gold. I knew it would be, but even more so than I'd imagined. So thank you so much for giving us so much of your time. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Legend.
Can people find you if they're looking for your help?
LinkedIn, at Will Foden. Builtforpressure.net is my website, or info@willfoden.com is my email.
Fantastic. And again, I will link to all of those as well. So thank you so much. You take care, and I hope you have fun with your son this evening.
Thank you very much. Take it easy.
Cheers. Bye.
So that's it for this episode. I hope you found this session of the Health ROI Show informative and maybe even a little entertaining. Kudos to you for investing this time in your own well-being and your learning. One last thing that the legal beagles need me to say. While we deep dive into elite health optimization, and while some of my guests are, I am not a physician, and this isn't medical advice. Everything we discuss is for educational purposes only, so please work with your qualified healthcare provider on any protocol changes you wish to make. Take care, see you next time, and in the meantime, stay awesome.